Hey, welcome back. We are back for another greatest lesson and how it's been applied to success. And we have another special guest, Herald. Welcome back to my podcast, Supply Chain Wake Up. I'm Kimberly Reuter, and this is the greatest lesson with Herald. Welcome, Herald. How are
Hi,
you?
Kimberly. I'm fine. Getting a bit cold out here. I'm
I
here
know.
stationed in Seattle, so we
Yeah.
we are feeling the winter time approaching. Good to
Has
see
rain
you again,
started yet? Has the rain started?
nonstop, nonstop.
Oh, it's already started.
7 inches last week.
Oh, come on. No. My audience knows I lived in Seattle for 15 years. This time of the year in the Pacific Northwest is pretty gray. That's all I'm going to say
It is.
about it. Like, it's depressing.
It is, especially the mornings and the evenings. When it
Yeah.
gets dark
Yeah.
early. It's But
It's
hey, our summers are great.
Summers are gorgeous. When the sun is out, it's absolutely beautiful. That does make it worth it. So, Harold, you and I bumped into each other almost 3 years ago. I think it was a mutual friend that introduced us, Michael.
Michael,
And you had
yes.
I think you had just started with the WCA, and I did a conference in Bangkok.
That's correct. Michael was so kind. He introduced us, and the rest
It's
is
history.
history, as they say. You joined us in Bangkok. You did a
Yeah,
fabulous job,
thank you.
and we repeated it this year in Salzburg.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we can do something together again in Barcelona next year.
Yes.
Um, we still have to work out the details, but this is where we are right now.
No, I
Uh,
would love to. It's a great event. Anybody out there who is in e-commerce, the WCA e-commerce events are always amazing. They are different from any other event that I attend, and highly recommend them. So feel free to reach out to me or Harold if you have questions. But today, Harold, we want to learn a little bit more about you. How did you get to, because you have a really long history in freight forwarding and you've lived in a whole bunch of countries. I can't remember how many.
yeah,
So tell us a little bit about
way
that.
way too long, the history. So my question is always, do you want to have the short version or the long version? The long version is preferably in the evenings over beer, uh, but I'll give you the mid-sized version. So I started actually quite early as an apprentice of all places, in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
um, in logistics, and never left logistics afterwards. As you said, I worked in a ton of countries worldwide. I worked in 4 continents and 18 countries.
Hmm. Yeah. It
Uh,
was something like that. It was around 20, I remember.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I spent actually the biggest part of my life in Asia, in Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, Philippines, Taiwan.
Wow.
One is missing somewhere. Um, it's usually easier to tell you the countries where
You
I did.
haven't been. Yeah. That's amazing. And was all that in freight forwarding and broking?
It was all. I mean, it started off with my parents. My dad took a job in Brazil when I was
Ah.
12, and then he moved to Hong Kong,
Hmm.
and that's when I got into logistics and never left.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it tremendously.
Hmm.
And 2 years ago, the owner and founder of the WCA,
Hmm.
David Yoakum, he gave me a call because I used to be a member for over 20 years in the WCA. So we knew each other. And he called me and said, "Look, I would like you to join us and lead the WCA e-commerce solutions." It
Excellent.
wasn't called solutions at that time. It was
Hmm.
just WCA e-commerce.
Hmm.
But that is the short version of
The abridged
how I got
version.
to WCA.
Very cool. As you mentioned, if you get into logistics and freight forwarding and it's for you, you never leave. It's kind of addictive. You can't really work anywhere else. It becomes very hard.
That's true. I mean, it's an addiction, and whenever outsiders ask me because logistics is not traditionally known as a glamour job.
Oh,
I
no.
mean, until let's face it, until we had all the supply chain disruptions a few years ago, nobody even knew how their products ended up at their doorstep.
100%.
But suddenly they didn't come,
Yeah,
and all hell broke loose.
they
What
cared.
is the logistics, supply chain? And everybody became a real expert, if you recall.
Oy vey. Yes. And you know what? I actually conveniently forgot about that because, right, pre-COVID, nobody knew what I did.
No.
Like, I worked with some people are like, whatever. Like, they're like, I don't know. She works for trucks and some boats. We don't know exactly what she does. But like my parents were like, well, she's not asking us for money. So whatever it is, it's paying her bills and we're happy. So you're right. It wasn't until COVID that people really started to understand what supply chain was really about.
Very true. And well, they needed somebody to blame for not getting their little gadgets that everybody.
Oh, the toilet paper. Do you remember the toilet
Oh,
paper?
the toilet
Oh,
paper. Yeah,
so much about the toilet paper. Yeah,
yeah.
so much about it. But yeah, so now to your point, supply chain now is in the forefront. We do have a lot of people who think they're experts now. I battle that every day. They've been in it for a hot minute, and because it's a hot topic, a lot of people want to be a part of it. But you and I both know, because we've been in it for a really long time, that it takes a long time to get successful at supply chain, and it takes a specific skill
It
set.
does.
Yeah.
It does. And I mean, I love logistics, right? And like I said, I don't think it's the most glamorous job perceived out. But for me, it was always the variety, right? And
Yeah.
the flexibility you have. I never had the same day, Groundhog Day. It never happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, one time I had to transport a nuclear reactor. The other day it was cherries to Japan. Uh,
Yeah.
it is, I mean, the worlds in between those two products, and every one of them has new challenges.
Yeah.
So it's been keeping me on my toes, and I still love it from
Oh, yeah.
the same way I did, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. I still love it. I have a lot less tolerance for the bullshit, I'll tell you that. But
Well,
I
yeah.
still love I still love logistics. I love solving the problems. And like you said, like no 2 days are the same when you're working in supply chain.
Well, and look at, I mean, we spoke a bit about e-commerce, right? I mean, who was really speaking about e-commerce 10 years ago? Nobody. The way today it's the fastest growing
It's everything.
product in the world. And if all the countries realign their import regulations, uh, talking about South America, where it's still pretty tough to do actual e-commerce.
Business, yeah. It is.
If that loosens up, I mean, it will explode.
It's
And
everywhere.
what goes again back to what we were just talking about, the COVID pandemic, people just want to have their thing overnight.
Yeah.
And this is where e-commerce comes in. They were spoiled because of the pandemic, and now they don't want to let go.
No. So pre-pandemic, e-commerce was growing. As far as market share, everybody knew that. I mean, Amazon, Target, Walmart were doing really well. And then COVID happened. People couldn't go out. They relied on online. They had to use e-commerce in order to get what they needed. And that did two things. One, it expedited adoption of e-commerce, right? And it expedited the innovation in e-commerce because all of a sudden there was so much demand for it that lots of companies got really good at it. And it's hard to give that up. Like I know people to this day who still have their groceries delivered because they got in the habit of doing it during COVID. And they're like, you know what? I really hate the grocery store and I don't need ever to go back there.
That's so true. And look, I mean, I take myself as a good example. I go hardly ever, unless it's, fresh food and so on. I want to see it. I want to buy my steak in person. I don't want to have that delivered to my house. And then you look at it and say, this is great marbling, but it's 90% fat,
Right.
I want to pick my product, but everything else, I mean, I'm so bad. I go into a store if I like something. I take a picture and I shop online and see
Oh
if I
my
can get a better price.
Yes, very common, by the way. Very common. Yeah.
I'm just honest about it.
So yeah, so e-commerce has really changed the world. It's going to continue to change the world. E-commerce isn't going anywhere. It's only
No,
going to continue to grow. And as markets open up and as more and more product becomes e-commerceable, like right, we're doing telehealth now. We're getting our prescriptions fulfilled by Amazon.
yeah.
Like it's like, when does it end?
I mean, everything is online now. I mean, my
Mhm.
my doctors prefer seeing me online.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know.
and if I'm honest, you know where I live. I live about 1 hour, if the traffic is great, outside of Seattle. It's not so bad. Instead of being stuck for an hour plus, and an hour coming back in traffic, time is so valuable. That's
Oh,
the only
totally.
thing you cannot recover in life.
This is totally true. I agree. It's very true. All right. So great innovations. We loving it. That's what we established here. So you have a ton of experience. You lived all over the world. You've been in freight forwarding and logistics your entire career, which, as we've just established, is one of the most exciting career paths that you can take. What is the greatest lesson that you have learned to date? Because you're still learning. And how have you applied it to your success?
I don't think there's only one single component, because if you pick on one thing, you have to do other things too, right?
Okay.
I mean, for me, I would say it was more dictated by the lifestyle I had. Living 2 years in Japan, then going to Singapore, and for the majority, people know when you move, you have to readapt completely. Even if you move, I just moved from Florida to Washington.
That's a
Uh,
shift, let me tell you.
it is a shift, but can you imagine what the shift is from Japan to Singapore, or from
Oh, yeah.
Hong Kong, from China to Korea, from Korea to Frankfurt, and
Hmm.
vice versa? So I think adaptability, it keeps you relevant, and
Hmm.
you have to absorb new cultures. How do people react to your
Hmm.
ideas? I would say that has probably shaped me the most. That wherever I am, and I still see that today. If I go to a expo to Brazil, where you suddenly are emerged with all the Latinos,
Hmm.
you have to act completely different
Hmm.
than in China or in
Yes.
Europe or in the US.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I just did a podcast. It's so strange that you should bring this up, about culture and culture challenges and working within cultures. And you bring up a really great one, because to compare Brazil and China is like black and white. Like those cultures are drastically different. Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that, because my impression is that Brazil, and my impression of Latin American people that I've worked with and when I've traveled to Latin America, they're very warm, they're very touchy, they don't have a lot of personal space.
Mhm.
They're, things like that that you're kind of put off like as an American, but you go to China, totally different.
Well, and that is the challenge, because you want to find out about differences before you offend somebody. That's
Yes.
always a good thing to do something like that beforehand.
Yep.
But I'm looking back, because my first introduction to a new society was pretty much when I was 12 years old,
Yeah.
uh, which was Brazil, and
Yep.
then from Brazil to Hong Kong when I was 17. I think you have to be cautious in initially, before you absorb it more like a sponge.
Hmm.
You immerse there, you open your eyes, you listen, you you have to be perceptive.
Hmm.
This is not, and like you said, in Brazil, everybody hugs everybody. It's normal. Kiss here, left, two kisses.
All over.
It depends even in the states. Some Brazilian states, it's three kisses, and you
Yeah.
try to do that at a cocktail reception in Shanghai.
Oh,
Uh,
hell no.
I think that would be a really bad idea, especially for
Especially a
business
woman.
connections. What is this
Very
guy doing?
true. So what I'm kind of hearing you say, Harold, is that it's important to meet people where they're at. Instead of coming in with and I'll say Americans, we're kind of famous for this, with our bravado and our like, this is how it's going to be. Meeting people where they are is a lot easier.
Absolutely. I mean, if let's take Shanghai again. If you go to Shanghai, you get off your plane and you meet the customs official. You already see a different attitude, right? The taxi driver that brings you to the hotel. Okay, the hotel staff is worldwide, all the fake grin and giving you the spiel, so they don't really count. But it goes slowly, and by absorbing again the local environment, I think that's key. And from there, you build an openness, because people generally they're the same. Most people are good people.
They are.
Of course, there's some out there that are not so good than others, but generally people are all the same. They were just thrown into a society or in a country, in a continent, and that's why they grew up like that.
Yeah.
Of course, they look different, but it's, for me, it's always funny when I see, sticking with Brazil, São Paulo has a huge Japanese immigration population.
Mm-hmm.
And those Japanese Brazilians, they act completely like Brazilians.
Mm-hmm.
They're all huggy and lovey and dancing. And just from the facial, right, you'd say,
Right.
wow, this just confirms to you that it is the environment that creates somebody. It's not, how you were born, it is where you were born.
Yes.
In what kind of circumstances. And from that, I think you can take a lot of lessons along the way, because it certainly helped me moving then from one continent to the other to just be really open-minded about that people are the same. They just have a different style. And you have to adapt when you go into their country.
Yeah.
That is probably the key. I mean, you have to show the necessary respect and not say, look, I come from the US, I come from Europe, I know much better than you. Well, maybe you can guide them gently, especially if you're running a company, but you have to be very careful. And I think that just has formed my personality over the years, how I interact, even if I'm here in the US, how I interact with people.
Yeah. I agree. I've traveled a lot, not as extensively as you have, but I traveled, exclusively for work for a long time by myself, and just like you get dropped into a country. That's it. There's nobody to meet you at the airport. There's no big tourist van waiting for you to get you through customs. Like, you got to fucking figure it out. You got to go get a taxi. You got to know where you got to go. And you have to do it in a language and a culture that you don't understand. So it is, in my opinion, it is always so much easier to try to meet the person where they are. I've always got translation apps. I have a map. I can't tell you how many cab drivers I've told them how to get to the hotel because they've never heard of it or, whatever. And I got my phone out. I'm like, go left, go right. We got it. But it makes a huge difference. And I think the biggest piece it makes, and I want to hear your opinion about this, is that it creates a connection.
That is probably the other lesson you gain out of is, this flexibility and everything, the friendships you create then locally.
Yes.
That the value is so tremendous. And over the years, I guess by treating people with respect, the respect comes back. And I have worldwide friends since 30, 40 years. It's just nice, when you can say, well, pretty much anywhere in South America, I would have somebody at the airport picking me up,
Yeah.
or somebody inviting me in the evening to their home to have a
Mhm.
barbecue, and in some cases, you you haven't seen that person for years and years. I give you an example. Over the weekend, I reached out to an old friend of mine. He was my customer in Hong Kong. I have not seen the guy probably for 35 years, but he pops up here and there on Facebook, and he lives in Portugal now. And
Wow.
after the conference in Barcelona, I actually want to spend a week in Portugal, checking out new places. So I reached out to him. 35 years later, we never seen each other, but these are the connections and the friendships and the networking you build. I think, especially in our industry, it's quite remarkable. Probably more so than a lot of other industries because we are so international.
Yeah. It's very true. Very true. And I do love those friendships that have gone on for decades and decades. And they're almost always, because of the industry we work in, a lot of those are forged in battle.
Yes, yes,
That makes
yeah.
them even stronger.
And, no, and especially, let's say, I mean, I lived in Korea in the mid and 70s. So it was a hardship country. I mean, you
Yeah.
wouldn't believe that today. There were about 50 in that time period, about 50 Germans, 10 Belgians, 50. It was such a
Yeah. Very
small
small.
group. You
Yeah.
needed each other to survive. These guys are all very close still. And
Hmm.
even so much later, it's normal that I get every now and then an email. Hey, I'm coming through Seattle. I haven't seen you in 40 years, but welcome. I mean,
Yeah.
and the nice thing is those connections, those friendships. After 5 minutes, it feels like there's no time gap in between,
Hmm. Hmm.
which
They're
is,
truly
in my
special.
opinion, the true definition of a friendship. If there's no gap, even doesn't matter how long it was.
No, I totally agree. Very good. Excellent lesson. Thank you for sharing, Harold. Be adaptable, be open, be vulnerable, meet people where they are, respect their culture. It'll take you a long way.
Make your friends on that basis, and
Yes.
you're set for life.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thanks,
that is us for
Kimberly,
today.
for having me. It was a pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you.